There's one mistake that I see people making all the time in their conversations, and it drives me crazy because this mistake is so easy to avoid. And when you learn to recognize it and you learn to avoid it, it has such a massive transformative difference on your conversations. Conversations are a pathway into connection, right? Most of us don't have conversations just because we like talking, although some of us certainly do like to hear the sound of their own voice. We become YouTubers, but conversation is an opportunity for connection. It's an opportunity to build bond with another person, to learn more about them, to grow closer to them. But if you make this mistake, chances are that's not going to happen for you. And you're going to end the conversation feeling frustrated, feeling dissatisfied, feeling like you just sort of danced around the surface level without ever being able to go deeper with the other person. And trust me when I say that I know what I'm talking about in terms of what makes a conversation work or not work. My name's Dr. Dan. I'm a clinical psychologist, and so this is my professional work, is to help people build better relationships. And I'm also autistic. And so I've seen time and time again in my own life the effects of social difficulties. And it was a long, arduous process for me to learn these things that I share with my audience here on YouTube about how to connect better with other people. So when I'm saying that this is the mistake that is killing your conversations, trust me, this mistake makes a big deal. Okay, so what is the mistake though? I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. It's very simple. When you are in a conversation with another person, that other person is going to give you what I call little golden nuggets. These are signals about a topic that they want to talk more about. And the big mistake is that people miss those golden nuggets and they just plow right on ahead to their next question or to something that they want to talk about or anything else. Here's what I mean by this. Let's say you ask somebody what they did this weekend. And they tell you, oh, I just got a new dog and I took him to the park and I played with him. Well, they could have answered that question in any way in the world, right? They could have talked about, how they slept in on the weekend. They could have talked about how they did chores. They could have talked about how they have a big work project that they prepared for, but they chose to tell you about the dog. And those moments of choice where a person chooses a particular detail that they didn't have to tell you, that is a golden nugget. Because in the context of this dog story, right, they didn't just say, oh, I walked my dog at the park. They said, oh, I just adopted a new dog and then I took him to the park. That little nugget that they just adopted a new dog, that is an invitation for you to ask more about the dog and about them adopting the dog, because they've signaled to you that they want to talk about it. It might not have been a conscious decision. They might not have thought, I want to talk about the dog, and so I'll mention the dog, but we bring up the stuff in conversations that we want to talk about. And so when you give somebody an open-ended opportunity, they will inevitably bring in the things that they want to talk about. If they are stressed about something, that might come in. If they're excited about something, if they have a favorite hobby that they've been engaging in that's been making them happy, all of those are things that they're going to add into the conversation. And all you have to do is listen for the unnecessary details. Because most people are polite, right? And so if you ask them a question, they're going to give you an answer. But the only thing you have to do to be polite is to give a pretty minimal answer, right? If I ask you, what do you do for fun? And you say, I like to play video games. That's a pretty minimal answer. That's sort of the base level that you need in order to be polite and not rude by refusing to answer my question. But if I say, what do you do for fun? You say, oh, I play video games. There's this new game that I've been playing. It's called this. It's really fun. This is what I like about it. Well, you've just added a golden nugget to the conversation. You've introduced a detail that you did not have to introduce, which was this video game. And then once I have that golden nugget, now I can start to ask some questions about it that allow you to open up. And I want to be clear here. There's something specific that you need to do in how you ask questions about these little golden nugget details. Because what many people do is that they get almost all the way to the finish line and then they fall on their face. And by that I mean they notice these golden nuggets, but they ask the wrong kinds of questions in the conversation. And here's the key thing. When you are asking a question about a golden nugget, you want to ask a question about the person's relationship with that golden nugget, not the golden nugget itself. So, going back again to this example of the dog, right? Somebody just adopted a new dog. You could ask, oh, well, how old is the dog? What breed is the dog? Does the dog like to play fetch? All of those are okay questions to ask, but notice what's happening. We're no longer talking about the person, we're talking about the dog. And so, in order to bring the person back in and have an opportunity for connection, what we need to do is ask about the person's relationship with the dog and the story of the person and the dog. So, for instance, we might ask, what made you decide to get a dog? Or we might ask, is this your first time owning a pet? And then if they say yes, we might say, what's it been like to be a first time pet owner? Or if they say no, then we might ask, oh, what made you decide to get another pet? So you see what we're doing in all of these things. We are weaving it back to the person and their experience and their story. That doesn't mean that every single question we need to ask needs to be this very insightful thing that pulls more information out. Again, sometimes it's okay to say, oh, well, how old is the dog? Something like that. But then we use that to then ask a follow-up that then connects with the person and their story. So if you ask, how old is the dog? And they say, oh, they're actually an elderly dog. You might say, oh, what made you decide to adopt an older dog? Because there's probably a story there. And when they tell you that story, then you're going to learn some things about them. You're going to learn what kind of person they are, what their values are, how they make decisions, what makes them excited. All of those are going to be things that make the conversation richer and make you more able to connect with the other person. And I should note for just a second that this has mostly been focused on asking the other person questions and getting them to share their golden nuggets. But guess what? The people that most folks find the most interesting are the people that are the most interested. And so if you are asking the other person good questions, you're curious, you're getting them the chance to share stories about their lives, things like that, well, guess what? They're going to start being interested in you. They're going to start noticing some of the golden nuggets that you bring into the conversation, those details that you volunteer, and they're going to start asking you questions about that. And so it starts to go both ways. Obviously, you do have the opportunity to share some of your own details even before they start to ask questions, right? Like if somebody says, "Oh, I just adopted a dog," you might say, "Oh, like I have a dog too," or "Oh, I don't have a dog, but I've always wanted one," or something like that. You can bring in yourself to a degree. But then what you always want to do is then bring it back to them and give them the chance to share a story about the situation. So you might say, "Oh, I don't have a dog. I've always wanted one, but it just seems too hard to take it for a walk all the time. How have you managed that?" That's not a big question. They're not going to tell you something incredibly insightful, but again, it's getting them talking, it's getting them sharing a story. And so that's the key thing. You want to look for those golden nuggets. You want to ask questions that let them share stories about those golden nuggets. And then, you want to see if they start to ask questions back to you. And that's where a conversation and a connection can grow. And if you try this and it doesn't entirely work, maybe you ask a couple questions about a topic and that fizzles out, that's okay. Maybe that wasn't a golden nugget. Maybe listen for another detail or something like that, because perhaps as you get more practiced at this, you'll get better at figuring out, oh, this is something that the person really wants to talk about versus this was just something that they happened to mention. Some of the clues that you'll start to look for are that something that a person brings up multiple times is much more likely to be a golden nugget that they want to talk about. So, if you ask them about their weekend and then you ask them about what they want to do for fun, and then you ask them about their plans for spring break, and all of those answers involve this dog, well, then they want to talk about the dog. I promise you that's a big part of their life. You can also try to figure out what counts as a golden nugget by just seeing what happens when you ask the person about it. Because normally when you ask somebody a question about a golden nugget, about a topic that they really want to talk about, you're going to see them light up. You're going to see them get more excited, get more animated. They're going to be sharing more information. You might see a little bit more emotion out of them. Whereas if you ask a question about a topic that somebody doesn't really care that much about, again, you're going to get more of that polite response. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be more muted. It's going to feel more generic. And so over time, as you practice this, you'll get pretty good at figuring out when you've just opened the door to a golden nugget and you've seen that person light up. So when you are in conversations, don't make the mistake that I see so commonly. Don't ask people just whatever question is on your mind or go through a list of small talk questions and then move on to the next one. Ask the small talk questions. It's okay to ask people what they do for fun or what they did over the weekend, but then listen to the answers. And when you notice a golden nugget, when you notice a detail that they volunteered that they didn't have to volunteer, especially a detail that they volunteered multiple times, ask them questions about that and about their relationship to that so that they can start to tell you stories. They can start to talk about their experiences, the decisions that they've made, things like that. And that is going to lead you to much better, deeper connections. So give that a try. Let me know in the comments what you think. And yeah, I'll be back at you soon with another video. This is Dr. Dan signing off.